Please welcome to the stage our panelists for Building a Blockchain Ecosystem, Partnerships, Innovation and Growth, led today by Anndy Lian. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. It's always good to see everybody here. So I have a very interesting panel of friends here. So without further ado, let's start with introduction. So Hakim, maybe you go first with a quick introduction, and then followed by everyone else. Thanks.
Okay, thank you so much. So my name is Hakim. I'm the director and head of Crypto Research Group. I'm also the senior advisor of the president of Lebanon. I've been in crypto since 2013 and we're here for innovation.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jehanzeb Awan. I'm the founder and CEO of Awan Partners, a GRC consulting firm. I am also a founder of Azaka, a RegTech platform, and I chair the Middle East, Asia, and Africa Crypto and Blockchain Association.
Hello, my name is Mete. I'm co-founder of ICB Blockchain and founder of ICB Verse, and here with you guys.
Hi, I'm Pratik Gauri, founder and CEO of Fire, a sustainable blockchain ecosystem. I've been in crypto for 8-9 years. I've invested in more than 100 companies.
Thanks a lot. I'm Anndy Lian. I'm from Singapore, so I'm an investor. I did a lot of projects, in Asia, and it's always good to be here. I also recently invested in a project called Wopify. They are the largest in Brazil. And of course, if you look at the meme cycle, I also invested in MemeCore. Recently, if you look at the Trump dinner, we are the number 2 holder on the Trump's dinner list. That's going to happen today, tomorrow. So I think introduction is always good, but partnerships are a lot better. We have been through a lot of ups and downs, but partnerships always stay very true to us. Just an example, I used to be the partnership chief with Bybit, right? So we did a lot of partnership with different big organizations. For example, with F1 Red Bull, and then of course we partner with German soccer powerhouse, BVB, so forth and so on. And we see good results, from partnership. Maybe one round, with all the panelists here. What do you think is a good, successful partnership, in your humble opinion?
Okay, I'll take it. So regarding the partnerships, especially something related to the sports industry, where we've seen like that the blockchain industry is trying to make it like global and attract the mass adoption by partnering with some big sport players and stuff. For example, let's say back in 2021, we've seen like Tezos partnering with Red Bull, also similar to what Bybit did before. And that was a great example that can showcase how you can attract mass adoption to the crypto space by just leveraging the fans and also the audience of other industries. So we've seen that the fans of Red Bull were just playing a game, collecting NFTs and collectibles, and eventually we got like a mass adoption. A lot of people are getting to crypto just by using like different NFTs. Another one is really reputable. Talking about Socios and Chiliz, that was one of the greatest moves. And I can say that they partnered with most of the football clubs, like for example, FC Barcelona or eventually like PSG, but a lot. And everyone knows that they have like crazy followers, fans, and eventually you try to get a percentage of those ones to get to crypto, use their different token, and eventually have access to maybe a voting power by holding the token. Not only this, but let's say I can talk about something else, not related maybe to sports, but recently, if you're following the news, Bybit, during those days, is trying to make partnerships with the big stock markets to eventually integrate some trading related to stock market with USDT and stable coins. Eventually, it will bring a lot of volume and a lot of users to the crypto space by attracting stock traders to the crypto market. So yeah, I'll maybe want to hear from you.
Yeah, there's a really big one from Bybit. You know, so the so-called Web2 TradeFi guys can just come in and have a sense of how Web3 can give them 24/7 kind of trading power, right? What about you, Jehan? Do you think high-profile partnerships is going to work well? Or what is your way of a partnership?
I think it's important for the audience to understand that behind any strategic initiative, you have to understand why you were trying to do that, right? So for all of the partnerships that you're seeing working, there are 10 times more partnerships that don't work. And you don't see that, right? The main element that everybody has to consider when you are getting into partnership is what value you are bringing to each other. A lot of time, that is not fully considered. Sometimes it's more of a PR exercise just to attract more users to a platform or the other platform. So it's very important to get the real economic basis for a partnership. We have seen some really interesting ones that have not worked out, and lots of money was spent, especially in the heyday. Somebody, without naming names, somebody spent $900 million on naming rights of a stadium, etc., etc. So these things do happen. However, I mean, if you just break everything down to basics, if I have 50 mangoes and you have 200 apples, and I want 100 apples quickly, I have two choices. Either I plant an apple tree or I partner with you to get the 100 apples, right? So, and vice versa. So it's very, very important to understand the fundamental economics of what you're trying to accomplish. Most people get into it because they want to increase their user base. And unfortunately in crypto, it's a build and exit mode, but I would say around 70 to 80% of the folks that are building projects that are building to exits to make money. So you really have to understand what the real long-term value is.
Yeah, actually I'm coming from ideal collaboration blockchain. We are based on collaboration. ICB is the ideal collaboration blockchain. We are very deep on the collaboration and finding the partnership in a blockchain with the Web2. And in a metaverse that we create as an ICB verse, we are making so many collaboration with the university all around the world. And even now we are on a negotiation with Vatican to be collaborate with them. And we are doing collaboration with so many universities, so many Ministry of Education all around the world, and talking with them about how they can make everything based on blockchain, NFT, tokenized, and how we can give certificate to the people by the NFT, how we can do KYC by the NFT, and how we can change the world with the partnership, with the big identity, and how we can work with the different part of the world with blockchain. We are now working with so many academy, small, big, so many e-learning platform, and helping them for so many place as a KYC, place as a NFT certificate, and helping them to improve themselves with a new generation of e-learning and education.
Pratik.
Yeah, I think in our journey, my journey, I think partnerships do play a massive role. I think for adoption, for credibility, brand building, and also to build legitimacy. So we started the company back in 2021 as one of the world's first sustainable blockchain ecosystems. I'm glad you mentioned Bybit. So we were one of the first tokens to be listed on Bybit, which was focused on sustainability. It's an L1. We sponsored the World Economic Forum in Davos, primarily to do a lot of partnerships and bring a lot of Web2 players into Web3, which also spun off into multiple partnerships. We also have been sponsoring the Nobel Peace Prize Forum in Oslo. You guys mentioned Formula One. We've been at Paddock Club at both Monaco and Abu Dhabi. I think one big piece in crypto is, I think, the education side, because a lot of people want to get into it. I'm specifically talking about builders and retailers and traders, and they don't have an education toolkit because none of the universities actually are able to do it. So, what we've done on the education side is we are the only blockchain which partnered with the government of India, with Niti Aayog, and we've trained more than 1 million kids. We didn't even charge anything, primarily to get those kids involved and get into crypto. We work closely with Abu Dhabi University. So we've done a bunch of partnerships, both from the private sector side, governments on the public sector side, to build a bigger user base, and more importantly, to educate people and new kids, specifically in their 20s, to get into crypto space. So I mean, yeah, I think one of the big key pieces of any crypto player to become successful is partnerships.
I think it's well said. In fact, I just want to touch on, before coming to Dubai, I was actually in Mongolia. So I'm one of the so-called experts, resource person, that were talking to 10 different country policy makers about startups. And of course, crypto is part of my agenda, and I think that kind of education, not only to the retail market, but also to the policy maker, is also a very good thing. Because I think, like for example, like Binance sees it, right? He's doing work with Kazakhstan and different other regions, right? But for me, because to be very honest, in order to be the advisor for a country, you take a lot of effort. But if you look at it from an education angle, us going to talk to all the different policy makers at one room, that would be a bit more productive, and I hope that could bring more productive partnerships, and they go home and they have their own strategy, So coming back to the panel, we all have our own thoughts on partnership, right? And then of course, all of us here are about community, right? L1 is about community, Surge and so forth. We all talk about community. And then if you have heard from many different partners, they kept talking about, let's convert Web 2 users to Web 3. How do you see that kind of partnership? Is it more for branding, or is it more really, you can bring in new users to the Web 3 space? So Web 2, Web 3. I will pass on to Pratik, and then we come back.
I think after the US, in the end of 2024, 2023 pretty much said that they started advocating Bitcoin. I think Web 2 would play a major role in bringing a large user base and increasing the user base of crypto. And when you talk about that, I'd like to break it down into a couple of pieces. One, I think, is education, to make sure that they understand the migration, how it happens. They feel more comfortable investing into crypto, since it's a highly volatile asset. And after, I think, so many altcoins, it's very hard for any retail investor to pick which one to choose. So I think there needs to be an education toolkit, which is again comes through partnerships and builds more legitimacy and credibility for any retail investor to come in. And when you talk about, I think, also with banking now, accepting cryptocurrency, a lot of the banks have already started to do it, and specifically with CBDCs coming into play, I think that would also play a major role for Web 2 players. I'm talking about even B2B players like, say, a Meta or a Tesla. I mean, those guys. And then I'm also talking about retail, so there are two pieces to it. And then, of course, the third side is the government. How is the government approaching the whole space of legislation, and how is it approaching regulation? So I was actually invited by the King of Bhutan, and now they are pretty focused on setting up, say, a Bitcoin strategic reserve, but that actually spins off into getting a lot of retail investors to start investing, and they feel more comfortable. A lot of the Web 2 exchanges, so even if you leave the Web 3 exchanges, I'm talking about Web 2 large players, they're also now starting to enable crypto trading. So I think those will facilitate a big user base, and I think that's the only way we go forward from here. If we were to look at the whole industry and we were to hit $10 trillion, which I think we should reach in 5-7 years, if we were to do it, I think it will only come if Web2 players, both B2B and retail, kinds of jumps into crypto.
Mete, what about you? Are there any good Web 2 to Web 3 strategies that really work well? You know,
There is a lots of way for this. As all of you guys know, we are in Dubai. Dubai has a very huge blockchain strategy for the future, and the strategy comes from so many places. But one of the most important is about the land department. They already signed a contract and partnership for this. And if you're seeing the Web2's company, there is. If we need, all of us, we are all here, we are looking for a community. All of us, as a blockchain, we are looking for a transaction, we are looking for a more wallet, we are looking for more community in our social media. So the thing is, we need to get involved, the people from Web 2 to Web 3. This is the only ways that we can do it. There is lots of things that we can go through that. Like, let's say when we are entering to this great event, if we can use an NFT as a ticket, it changed lots of mind here, and people, they will use cryptocurrency. We have to start something like this from ourselves. We have to start something like this from the event like this to make a huge change in a world. And don't use the Web 2 for entering to the event on the Web 3.
I think there are three elements you have to consider. I'm sure most people here probably know that 75% or more of the world's wealth is with people who are 50 years old or older. So there's a little bit of a disconnect in terms of the adoption rates that people are talking about. Very few 50-year-olds are gonna go on to Binance or Crypto.com website and trade futures. Okay, so that's one. So it's important to make sure that we understand the dynamics of the market, right? So the younger generation definitely will adapt it faster. The more avenues that are available. Your point about the ticket being an NFT, that's very good. Second point, if you ask me, my view on adoption is simply a user interface issue, okay? I want 3 clicks, I don't want the 4th click. If I can do 3 clicks and buy crypto, I'm gonna buy it. If I have to do 4 clicks, 5 clicks, 6 clicks, I mean, this is the whole thing. If you, in our tech platform, what we're trying to achieve is reduce the number of clicks, similar to what Amazon does, right? If you think about how Amazon kind of got to it, the number of clicks are reduced, and they're very aggressively looking for that. So it's a UI issue. And then the third one is a very specific issue in terms of retail versus institutional. And most of the time when people are talking about investments, they kind of mix the two. There is a humongous difference between retail investing and institutional investing. And institutional investors, anybody who's half smart, will not only go long, they will also want to make sure they have some hedging strategies, and that's where you don't see a lot of institutional investment. The institutional sort of plays that are happening for more retail people getting access to the crypto industry. So those are the things that need to be considered. Again, I don't want to be the balloon buster here, but it's very important to understand what the challenges are so that you can invest in them.
Okay, so what I would say here is that we are evolving in a cyclical market. So talking about the mass adoption can be like a little bit different from a perspective or a bull market or a bear market. Especially talking about the big infrastructure, big exchanges. Like we can see that during a bull market, most of the exchanges are hiring like 200, 300 positions. If it's a bear market, we can see like the opposite cycle is going to happen, like exchanges start firing. So how are we going to talk about the mass adoption here? It really depends. So for example, we have many verticals, many perspectives. And this starts with the investment. So if we have like today, if we have investors, hedge funds, and the private angels like pushing the money to the market, we've seen that most of the entities are trying to adopt some verticals that are attracting users from Web2. How we do that? So it's pretty much different from a company to another. We've seen like a lot of KOLs trying to bring the mainstream to the crypto. We've seen like many projects partnering with big like sports, big institutions, big Web2 companies, the big Web2 mastodons, and that's how it works at the moment. But eventually we'll need a lot of education, because we've seen a lot of people come into the crypto space just because there is a hype. And then tomorrow, if the market is dying, we can notice that there is no demand, no research, no education, no purpose for the crypto space. So that's something everybody knows that during the bear market, everybody is building. During the bull market, everybody is scaling, and that's how we make money. So most of the people who are non-educated today and don't know anything about crypto, they came to crypto when it's only the bull market, and it's actually an exit for those who were like building a kind of bear market. So talking about mass adoption, I would say that we'll need to be real careful. More awareness, more education is really necessary in this market at the moment.
I think we are quite far from mass adoption, to be very honest. In fact, when I bring up the Web 2 to Web 3, I just want to really hear out how you guys are feeling, because it's not easy. When I deal with government, it's not easy. When I deal with VCs, it's again not easy. So I think we are still building, and we are kind of early, so it's kind of fine, right? So, but coming back to all this blockchain ecosystem partnerships and so forth, let me ask a question. Maybe from Pratik's side. What are some of these partnerships that are really missing, in this blockchain ecosystem? What's missing, and what do you want to have, or what do you wish to have, starting from Pratik?
So I think one big piece is, as I mentioned, I think I've been speaking more and more on education. I think there needs to be a lot of partnerships for ecosystem with universities. I mean, that piece is still missing. I know some of the exchanges which ended up starting their own universities. That's already started to happen, but I want to see more is larger ecosystems, which includes, say, the Ethereum ecosystem and larger ecosystem, or the SUI ecosystem, partnering with universities all across the world. Specifically, I focused on Southeast Asia. If we have more of those partnerships, I think the awareness level of younger generation, of younger kids would go higher, because they still don't know how to enter crypto. I mean, and it's very hard to look at a KOL or an influencer promoting something on Twitter, which can be very misleading at times for younger kids. So I don't see that as an entry point for any investor, I think, or a young kid. So I think the education piece is still missing. I think it needs to be more. The second piece is, I think, the regulation side in a lot of countries. I think that's still missing. Dubai, we are in Dubai, so we are still, we consider ourselves lucky because the ecosystem is pretty developed and it's developing. But Dubai cannot be the only place where everybody needs to come, because right now any country I go to, they say, oh, you were in Dubai, we also want to move to Dubai because we are in crypto. But that can't happen. That can't be the case for the next decade. You need to have other countries emulating what Dubai has done. And there needs to be stronger regulated players, so that there cannot be any misleading practices happening in crypto, where you see a token suddenly dumping 99%. I mean, and you see most of the tokens say on pump fund go to zero. I mean, that cannot be the way a younger kid should learn crypto. Of course, memes are great for excitement, as I think Hakim mentioned on the bull run. I think it's fine to just get you excited, but that's not what blockchain stands for. I think it's a wider, it's much more than that. I think if you're entering the space, you need to learn what the technology actually stands for. You shouldn't just look at it as a quick money-making play. And I think that's again missing. So one part is education with larger universities. You could start with Ivy League universities, but it needs to happen in Southeast Asia. That's where the biggest user base is, and that's where the biggest working age population is still less than 35. Most of the people who are bread earners in families are still less than 35. 5 in Southeast Asia. So they need a way to get into crypto. I think so that can only come with education, and the government needs to support it with stronger regulation. So I think those are the two missing links I feel in crypto right now.
Well said.
Totally agree about the regulation, as we are in one of the best regulated country for a crypto. But if you go out of Dubai, you will see that there is lots of with the regulation. And of course, education is the best way, and from where and how we have to do to fill this gap for education on a blockchain. In my idea, the way that we have right now is AI. With the AI, we can educate everyone on a blockchain. So this is one of the main gap that we can solve it in the future. And the thing is, with using AI, we did in our metaverse, and everybody can do this. And even we can teach people in all around the world, everywhere, with the AI, and teach them how the blockchain works, how the NFTs work, how the cryptocurrency work. The most important thing is the people, they are not educated about blockchain. Maybe they knows Bitcoin, they knows Ethereum, they knows only about the assets. They knows even NFT, but they knows NFT as some art piece to buy it in a huge amount, but it's not an NFT. NFT is a very accessible things that we can use every day in our life. And there is lots of things that we can change it with a good education, with a good learning system. And in my idea, we have to start from the kids for next generation. That's the most important things that we have to focus on in the future.
Okay, I think I have a slightly different view on this, right? How many of you in the audience know how the internet works? Can I get a show of hands? Technically. Do you know how technically the internet works? Do you know what URL stands for? How many of you know that? Okay. 1, 2, 4? Okay. So basically, I think the point that I'm trying to make here is assuming and expecting that people will understand what blockchain is. I don't think that's the right strategy. Similar to how we use internet, nobody thinks about it. You just go on Google and get to the outcome. Web3 has to get to that place, right, for mass adoption. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. And then on the specific elements, when you're asking a question about what's missing where, right? So if you're looking at the government side of things, you have lots of governments and obviously you're advisor to many governments. There's lots of plans, infrastructure is in place. Obviously, the UAE government, Dubai government, particularly, lots of stuff is on the blockchain, tokenization, etc. I think sometimes what we talk about is sort of the crypto element, the speculative element, the investment element is what we kind of use to cover the entire Web3 and blockchain ecosystem. But when we're talking about infrastructure, yes, there are universities that are now using blockchain to record grades and everything else, which is fantastic, stuff like that. But when you go to the private side of things and there are investments that are going in, the regulators have, unfortunately, a very complex problem to solve. If they create strict regulations, everybody will complain. If they don't create strict regulations and there are blow-ups, everybody will complain, right? So you have to kind of, they're in a lose-lose setup, not a win-win setup. Everybody has to understand, and I think the panel before us was talking about, okay, you know, it's not fair that Binance has to pay $100,000 as the application fee and a startup has to pay $100,000 as an application fee. To me, that's a false argument. Either when you're talking about making money, particularly making money and taking other people's money and doing business with it, if you're not funded, you shouldn't be in it. Very simple. Because you are putting other people's money at risk by not having the appropriate infrastructure, appropriate capital, appropriate system to control. So it's fantastic to have these discussions, but I think it's very important to be very specific in how we're solving the problem.
The audience always watching, right? you ask them about blockchain. So what's blockchain? Anyone knows what's exactly blockchain from the technical aspect? Who knows? Nobody. So let me just, okay, cool. Let me just simplify it. Like most of people are confused a little bit between what's crypto, what's blockchain, what's Bitcoin, what's the difference between all of them. And to simplify it, I would say like, imagine that blockchain is the road. And then we have like crypto, which is Bitcoin as an asset. Bitcoin is just something small in what is blockchain. So Bitcoin is just a car running into this road. So Bitcoin is normally and initially made to be a payment method, not an investment asset. And blockchain is this road where we can say that it's a decentralized ledger, where we can put like everything there, we can store everything, any type of information. So just to make the differentiation between both of them. But in order to circle back to your initial question, talking about the type of the crucial partnerships between like different aspects of the blockchain that can make it maybe better or attract more users, I would say initially at the moment, I would say that we need partnerships inside the blockchain industry. By doing so, I'm talking about partnerships between L1s, L2s, rollups, and eventually ZKs. So at the moment, we're seeing that the kind of Ethereum Foundation, they were trying desperately to set up something called account abstraction since almost now 4 years. What's account abstraction is actually the way how we can go to the mass adoption. So account abstraction, you know that before internet, that was so complicated to use it. For example, let's say like 2007, if you want to open an account in any type of website, you need to drop a message to the developer, asking him to create an account for you, to set up a password. And then if you want to modify something, you need to get back to this developer and ask him to do this. Because eventually, there's something super technical. At the moment, blockchain is super technical. What we need to do, for example, imagine somebody who's like 60 years old plus, who wants to make a transaction into blockchain. Then they will ask him, what network do you need to choose? And then it's completely a mess. And if you are wrong with the type of network, you lose your money. So account abstraction, it's called also the ERC 4337. It's mostly made to help actually people, anyone, to understand what's blockchain. So you can eventually recover your phrase key by using just your email. Or eventually you can use any type of conditional phrases. For example, if I lost my key, I can recover it by combining two wallets, which is way more easier than actual moment. You lose your phrase key, you lose your money. So I would say that for the major L1s, L2s, the best would be to maybe adopt the account abstraction, cooperate with the Ethereum Foundation, and eventually get it easier.
To be honest, I really hate the EIP 6969 1234. Those, to be honest, are not really important. In terms of adoption. The tech guys here might be okay, we know. But the best thing about blockchain that I see in 2017 is that you will be using it, but you will not feel it at all, right? So who cares what's behind internet, right? What is www? It doesn't matter, All we need to do is to see people using it, and that is a real adoption. And right now, I think the biggest missing piece in terms of a lot of this partnership is not only about education. If you look at the first example that I gave, I was in Mongolia talking to 10 countries. I talk about a Brazil project called Whoopify, how they managed to raise funds, so forth and so on. Many of the policymakers are actually quite surprised, which means Web3 or crypto kind of startup is still not a very popular thing in certain countries, right? And since it's not popular, my only humble suggestion, for all of us who are still building, is to integrate yourself, merge yourself with the startup communities, really. Because if we can do well in the Web2 startup communities, tell them about Web3, the kind of conversion or the kind of integration of cryptocurrency into their Web2 business would be really highly possible, right? So I think we if we can, we should pay more attention and get ourselves to all these different startup demo days and so forth to pitch about crypto and your project. It's not something like, oh, that startup community is about Web2 apps. That one is about AI and so forth. Let's find a place to integrate, and that kind of partnership is really going to bring you a lot longer. About 11 more minutes. About how we build the ecosystem and so forth. I've one question. If you are in the market, we kept talking about KOLs, for example, key opinion leaders, influencers, right? Do you think that they play a vital role in today's blockchain and crypto ecosystem? And how can they do better if there's a need, in your humble opinion, for yourself, bro?
Okay, I would say regarding KOLs, it's a really tricky question, especially in those type of market situations. Yeah, it really depends, but most of the KOLs at the moment, they are trying to leverage the funds of the founders, the projects, but at the end, only few of them are delivering real results. Few of them are delivering attracting the mass adoption, because you can go to a profile of any KOL, and then you can see that they're posting about 10 projects and different projects a day. So even the audience is losing credibility, because this influencer in the back is just trying to make money. So there is no real value at the end, So at a certain level, the mass adoption starts losing hold, and they are not following at all any kind of KOLs. But it could be different for on a bigger perspective, talking about not big KOLs, but I'll say celebrities. Most of the time, the result is way better, because they can attract a lot of audience, but they care about their reputation. So that's it.
How about yourself, man? Is it good, bad?
So, my background is in regulatory compliance and risk management. Right? So, in traditional financial services, if you are promoting a financial instrument, you have to be a regulated institution or a representative of a regulated institution. And the typical scenario that is used is that if you're going to make money via promotion of a financial instrument, you must be regulated. So your point about influencers and other sort of similar promoters of certain tokens, coins, whatever have you, effectively within now the new infrastructure, MiCA, and obviously under our rules and everybody else, potentially will come under the regulatory framework, which means if you promote coins that don't do well or are just simply essentially rug pulls from the start, you can end up in jail. So, and you should end up in jail. That's how it should be, because if somebody tomorrow ran away with your money because you thought that you were investing in a bond and they did not, and they took your money, you would want that person to go to jail. Nothing changes just because you move from Web 2 to Web 3. Right? So, very, very important. And again, I think we kind of confuse the message quite a bit. Meme coins, what are meme coins? Most of the people, at least that I know, who invest in meme coins are people looking to make money. They are not tied to the project at all. And by default, meme coins are just produced for fun. Right? NFTs, I can understand. Project coins, I can understand. Utility coins, I can understand. So it's one of those things where I think everybody's trying to get on the bandwagon, and there's a little bit of a let me see how much money I can make without putting too much effort in, and that doesn't end well for a lot of people.
Actually, KOL, of course, is very important for everyone, because if you see the market came from the Asian side, and then it went to all around the world. So if we see this market, there is a community of people that they love to have something like meme coin. They love to have pay a lot for NFTs, like very small artwork with a huge amount. These people, they are of course working with the KOL. It comes from social media. It comes from the marketing side that the owner of that NFT or the owner of that meme coins they start. Without KOL, they cannot do this. But if we should trust to KOL, in my idea as a blockchain person, no. Because mostly in a KOL, they get the money to rob your money. That's the exactly thing that they're doing in the market. So in my idea, I have no idea why we should go through the meme coin or any type of this non-useful coin. But yes, you are seeing there is lots of KOLs, lots of influencers that they are talking about this kind of project, and people they are buying that project more than the project that we created with the whole ecosystem. Of course, it's a part of this market. We are out of time. I'm handing over to you.
I think KOL is always going to be around. What about yourself, Pratik?
Yeah, so I think for now the place, I mean where we are in the whole adoption journey, KOLs are playing a major role right now if you were to look at it. But compared to stock markets, I think 10 years down the line the role would considerably decrease, because right now, as I mentioned, retail investors the only way they get educated is on Twitters and Telegrams, and when they see somebody with massive fan following, they end up following what they're doing. But in the future, when there will be more adoption and people will understand, how to judge a token, whether to invest or not invest, and then they will get deeper into token economics. Because right now, most of the investors are not savvy to it. They end up investing just because an influencer is telling them to invest. And probably 3 of their signals have gone well. So, that trust keeps developing, and then people end up losing money as well. So I think for now the role is pretty large, but I think as you keep going in the journey, the adoption journey, 10 years down the line, I see that role diminishing considerably.
I agree in that, and KOLs are helping in some ways a certain growth, but of course there are good KOLs and bad ones, or maybe bad influencers and the good ones, right? So we need to differentiate which is bad and which is good, and I agree with you on how people promote securities and bonds and so forth, but the market kind of shifted after our dear president, not mine, but President Trump, started to say that these are all collectibles, right? So I'm not sure how's that going, in the future, but I think every one of us are here trying to build partnerships in our own capacity, and of course I wish everyone all the best, right? So we have about 3 more minutes to go. Every one of you could give a final word or comment, and then we can close off the panel. So again, Pratik, please.
I think the final word that I'll have is, I think definitely, since we're speaking on partnerships, I think we all agree that partnerships do play a major role. I think as we go from $1.5–2 trillion industry towards a $10 trillion industry, the only way to do it is through larger partnerships, because that will bring in adoption. So I think anybody who is trying to build something in the Web3 space, I think after you build your MVP, I think the go-to-market can only happen, or people will only trust you, what you're building, if you have good partnerships.
Yeah, of course, partnership and education is the most important things, and I'm just telling to the people, maybe they are here as a startup. If you guys are here, there is a huge way in front of you, but don't waste your money in anything like a huge amount in a PR or KOL. Just try to get VC, try to get the collaboration with the other blockchain, and go ahead.
I think the most important thing from a partnership and ultimately adoption point of view is the real world use cases, and I'll give you one. Africa suffers from significant currency devaluations, fluctuations, etc. And trade finance is humongous in Africa. And a very simple use case for blockchain and particularly stable coins is to facilitate trade finance in Africa. You have a farmer who basically sells his cocoa, let's say, to somewhere in Belgium, and he's getting basically his local currency back as opposed to getting dollars, it creates a huge issue for these guys because the currency devaluates on an ongoing basis. So to me, I think partnerships need to be aimed at creating real world value and real world use cases. If we do that, automatically you'll have a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon because once you're on, if you solve my problem and it's being solved through blockchain or through crypto or through stablecoins, then automatically whatever gains I'll make, I'll look to kind of put that back into the system.
So I would say in general that blockchain and crypto is here to stay. The only matter is to approach it in a safe way. And eventually, the chaos that you see in crypto might be opportunity. Thank you.
I heard a lot of things about adoption, about implementation and so forth within this partnership ecosystem. I think we have to remember one thing, community is the best partnership, right? Or without community, without people to use the tech to promote your project, there'll be no projects, there'll be no future. So whatever the case is, I still felt that if we can treasure our community, communities will bring you more partnerships, community will bring you more joy, so enjoy the journey together. Thank you everybody. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you so much for that panel discussion. We'll now be moving swiftly on to our sixth keynotes of the day. A hot topic indeed at the moment.